I'd like to call the meeting of the Selectmen to order. We'll start by saluting the flag, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, we have a new member. She might like to introduce herself.
Hello all, I'm Tracy Hardikoff. I reside over on Stone Farm Drive here in Barrington, and I've been in town, I'm not quite sure if it's 18 years, but it's somewhere between 18 plus years, I think, at this point. So thank you all who came out and voted in that wonderful storm. And it was a pretty incredible day at the polls, seeing lots and lots of people participating.
Thank you. And the first thing on the agenda is to elect a chairman. Let me say before anybody says anything, I do not want to serve as chairman. We plow snow for the town of Barrington, and to me, there's something about that in my weak little mind that could be a conflict of interest. So I really would rather not serve as chairman. I don't mind vice chairman, because it's just once in a while, but I think that you have people that could serve as chairman. Okay.
From a nominating perspective, is someone interested in that role?
I would be interested. I'll say it right up front. You can.
Would you be interested? I mean, you know, it's nice to have a couple run if you want. If not, looks like, do you want to put your name in the running too? We want to go home tonight.
I know. I would do it. I would definitely do it. I have a lot going on with a new position and everything, but I do appreciate a well-run meeting.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion for one of the other of our candidates?
I want to make a motion, Mrs. Hatch.
Now, I explained myself.
No, for the alternate. You
right.
just said
Yeah.
for the other position.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be me either.
I'll second that.
I believe you're nominating for vice chairman.
Vice chairman.
Vice chair, yeah.
Okay. You want to vote on the vice chair?
Aye. Aye.
Bailey, aye.
Yeah, bye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Okay, and now we're,
Did you abstain or
oh,
a
well,
vote?
it's kind of,
So you abstained, okay.
I abstained.
Just so we have five, we can add up to five every
Yes.
time.
And now for a chairman,
Well, can I ask for a little debate from both candidates?
well, don't you make the motion first and then have
Well,
a debate?
It's up to you
I'm torn.
how you want to do it. Do you want to just say how many for George and how many for Andy? Or do you
That's
want
fine
to
with
say,
me.
take a motion and vote on the motion and have a motion for one? It's kind of up to you.
So how do you, how do
I have a quick question.
Okay.
How long is your tenure on the board?
I have one more year.
You have 1 more year, George?
I have two.
You have 2 years. And does the, just so I can understand procedurally, does the chairman serve until their tenure is up, or do they serve for a year?
1 year.
1 year only? Okay.
Yeah, that's written in stone.
Okay.
And which way would you like to do this? How many for George, how many for Andy, or individual votes?
You're the chair.
No, you know, for 5 years, I've expressed that it's a 5-member board, and I firmly believe that all 5 members should take part. So I'm looking for a suggestion, a motion, or whatever.
Can we have 2 minutes for each candidate?
Yes, you can have 2 or 3, whatever you'd like. Okay, you got something you want to say, Andy?
Not particularly. My feeling on it is You know, I spend a lot of time reading everything that comes through, as I'm sure everyone else does. I often have feedback on what we do, and, you know, I pride myself in doing my homework and looking through everything that's there, and trying to do everything I can to work well with everyone that is part of this town.
Well, I've been around a while, not because I'm the oldest, but because I've been here.
That was
And
nasty.
I know that. I know that. I have, and like with Andy, I read quite a bit, I investigate quite a bit, and I have my opinions as Andy has his. Not always do we agree, but at least we're able to work together, and however the board votes, it's fine, because I think that either candidate would be one that would carry the board forward.
Okay, anything more you want to discuss?
Yes, I had to reverse the vote. I voted last time.
Okay.
Well, it's going to be a nomination.
No, well, actually, are you asking who's voting for what? Are you doing it that way?
Yes. Are you going to do individual votes, or are you going to just say, I support Andy or George or whatever, and whoever gets the most? And you know, what could happen is that who gets the least could be the vice chairman.
They've already elected.
Just a suggestion.
You can't backpedal too much.
Okay? Does anybody, which way do you want to do it? Individually? Or who gets the most out of the 5 votes? This is going to be a long one.
I think it's going to be your call. You pick how you want it done.
I have one more question. George, how long have you lived in Barrington?
Over 20 years.
Only 3.
3 years. Okay. That's my only question.
Okay? Now, let's,
I'll make the second, I'll second the, whatever you come up with.
okay, let's vote individually. How many of the members support George?
I would support George for the position. And I think that we have 2 very qualified candidates for the position. I think that George likely has a history that sometimes can add value to leadership roles.
Andy?
Since I'm running, I abstain.
George?
Well, I'm not bashful, I'll go for myself.
Okay.
Recount.
Dan?
Why do you vote?
What, my vote?
Yeah?
Well, I am going to vote for George, not what I think Andy would do just as good a job, maybe better. But I know he's just taken on a new job, and he is very busy, and I think sometimes you can overload yourself, so. George is retired, got a lot of time to.
Make sure you spell that right.
So I'll vote for George.
Perfect. Congratulations, George.
Thank you very much.
Did Dan vote?
Doesn't matter.
Well, he
You
should
wanna vote?
vote. Are
You
you
should.
voting?
I'll support the board. Majority.
Oh, that is a comment.
George.
Okay, then George is our chairman for the next year, and I don't have a gavel to give to you, but I passed the,
There is a gavel in the.
It's all right, I really don't need that.
Okay.
okay, so you got your agenda there, so go for it.
Appreciate you, appreciate everybody's vote, I really do. I hope I can live up to it. If anybody feels along the way that I'm not living up to it, let me know and we can have another vote. Plain and simple.
Appreciate that.
Okay?
And then I want to thank Mrs. Hatch for volunteering to be my substitute when I'm not here. I appreciate it.
Well, just don't be absent too many times.
You know, only probably in September will be a good time for you to be practicing up for.
Okay?
Thank you. All right. We have, the next thing on the agenda is the public hearing on the issuance of a building permit for Bruce and Ann Atwood, Isaac's Turn, a private road, map 206, lot 0011, is the petition of present.
No, I'll speak to it.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
The Atwoods would like to build a single-family dwelling on Atwood, on Isaac's Turn, which is a private road. The road agent, Peter Cook, has viewed the road and noted it is between 12 feet and 18 feet wide, and it currently has a soft base, and it shows a mud season at this point. He would like to have the road graded after construction from Ayers Cove Drive to the property owner's driveway. The issue also goes before the planning board for their comment, and they mentioned that the variable width of the road does not comply with the Class 6 or private road policy. However, they knew of no pending projects or conditions that would hinder issuance of the building permit. So I asked for approval of the building
Can
permit.
I just ask a question? Where on Isaac's Turn, is this way down?
No,
Is
in the very beginning, it's a shared driveway, right by where Treehouse goes off. I have a map. Yeah.
What's the name, Peter?
Town approved one not too long ago, right beside it.
Yeah. It's right in the beginning. What's his name?
McElroy. Yep.
And this one is just distribution. It's a shared.
Okay, anybody want to look at it beside me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Dave.
There's no way to improve it near the 16-foot road and 2-foot shoulders, or have turnouts for emergency rescue if they had to be hauled in there?
It's right by a corner. I mean, it's right by a corner where you could turn around.
I don't know how wide the easement is there. Is there any way they could?
It's a private road. I don't know how long it is either.
That's a really tight, that's more of a driveway than a road.
Peter, what would you recommend as far as the width goes on it? Would you recommend any changes to it, upkeep, or what? Before they...
Once again, I don't know what the right of way is. I know, this time of year, the best time to be going to look at dirt roads.
I understand that part.
I went down, it was mushy, it was solid, I had no path, I passed a couple of trucks coming in and out. They were working on the driveway, so I passed, one truck coming in and out. Without knowing the right of way,
Would you recommend putting gravel down from the beginning of the road to their house?
no, because it's pretty solid
Okay.
from down through there. I don't see it as a big issue. Other than, I don't even know if they have an association. If they got an association, they probably ought to see about maybe him joining the association, or not making him, but recommending he joins the association to help maintenance, future maintenance.
Ann, you got a question?
I was about to play for the public.
Oh. Is this below the driveway that comes out onto Ayers Cove? There's the road has been,
I have a big map or not.
no, in that small map there you see the road that comes
Yeah,
out
but it just,
onto West Ayers?
no, mine's more specific. I may have another
Oh,
map.
I just was curious where that, where in regard, the reason I'm asking is we want to own
Yeah,
one whole side.
I know.
So
Yeah.
I like
No way
to.
near that, it's all.
Yeah.
We're down there next to the water.
Wait,
It's down there by the water.
oh,
This
The
is
shared
water,
driveway,
the lake.
built last
Yes.
year.
oh, they're on the lake.
Yeah.
They're on the
Oh,
lake.
see, I thought the way they spoke,
Yeah.
it was just as you go in.
It's a small lot.
No, because it goes, it's a snow frontage.
Yep.
Yep, they go across
Thank you.
from
Thanks for the run.
Ayers Cove Drive.
Yeah,
So this is,
sure. No, I just.
You know where it is.
Yeah, okay.
And it's
Just
fairly, um,
Yeah.
Steep run
Yeah.
down.
So, okay, I'm asking, sorry about that. Take it.
It's okay. It just shows that maybe you should have said yes. Excuse me, Rick, do you have any comments on this at all?
I defer to the road agent.
Okay.
I don't, he doesn't put fires up, I don't know roads. So I learned my lesson when I built the tower a couple of years ago. And we all know how that worked out, so. I defer to what he says. That road is reasonably well taken care of from the standpoint that we've had to get down in there with the ambulance and fire trucks. And, you know, as long as it's, you know, I mean, I don't really know the answer to the question you're asking for. If you're going to make them, you know, you're going to make them do the right of way and go 15 feet straight down through there or whatever.
No, I just think I just wanted to get your input because of the safety nature of it, either with the ambulance or with the trucks.
Well, obviously the trucks are a little bit longer, but again, we don't go down in there very often, but we've been able to go all the way in. I took a ride down through there, but again, we're going to put a fire truck in as far as we can, no matter what the weather conditions are or the road conditions. Obviously, we're not going to destroy a truck, but it's not any different than the 22-inch snowstorm and the road hasn't been maintained yet. If we can get in, we're going to get in. If we can't, we're going to figure out a different way to deal with the situation.
Thank you very much.
Part of the process before it even comes to you is it's been to Rick and Bob, to Chief Walker.
That's what, just
before.
I appreciate it. I was
yeah.
just trying to see if you
That's
had
part
the
of the
input, because I
list.
know for the difficulty in the past discussing it. Does any board members have any other questions? I'm going to admit it. Yes, Tracy.
There are 8 other homes already on that road,
Yes.
as I'm seeing. So regardless,
Yeah.
the services would have to reach the road.
The way it's set up is that the individual who puts the home on there is responsible from their home to the beginning of the road. And that's why we put so much into it, because they're responsible for dressing the road and coming down. And that can get quite expensive as far back as they are. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Yes, Dan.
Well, I'm not the smartest person, but my understanding for travel lanes is 16 feet, 2-foot shoulders, and that's 20 feet. So if someone else comes in front of us, we should be consistent.
Okay. Any other comments? Comments from the public?
I understand the Class 6 and private road policy, but I just want to point out to the board that a year ago, you issued a building permit for the other side of the shared driveway. And it would be inconsistent. They're not building a new driveway, they're using one off which you have already issued a building permit. I just wanted to make sure you understood.
Any other comments from the public? Close the public comment section. It's the board's choice.
I'll make a motion that we allow the building permit for a home on a shared drive on Isaac's Turn. And any suggestions that Peter might have, that they be looked into and abide by them.
About the road association.
I don't know that there is a road association.
There is a road association.
You never
Then-
know.
They should join one.
Would you make a recommendation that they be asked to join the road association?
Well, that would be a hard decision for me because I'm not in the road association and have no intentions of joining it, so somebody else might
Well-
want to.
Dawn, would you like to withdraw your motion? I'll make it.
Yep,
So
that's
you're
fine,
no
I'll
conflict.
withdraw the motion.
Motion withdrawn. Who has a motion and wants to discuss? You?
I'll make the
Or
motion.
Dan, are you going to do it?
I'll second it, how you do it.
Dan Scott.
Okay, Dan.
I'll make the motion to accept with conditions stated by staff. We suggest that they join the road association.
Recommend join the association.
So the motion is to grant the building permit conditional upon the improvements of the road recommended by the road agent and a recommendation to join the association.
Right.
Is that
Do I
the
have a
motion?
second, please?
I'll second.
I have a second, Tracy. All in favor?
Here,
That's right.
I just had another question.
all right.
Oh, please, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Ed. I'm just trying to understand the basis of a shared driveway, where that came in, because it looks like it's on the other lot.
Well, they'd have to, if the,
It actually was on the other lot, and they did get an approval to have access not from their frontage, and they have a variance too, because they couldn't quite meet the setbacks. They already got the state shoreline permit back, and they've already got this septic design approved by the state.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, bye.
So, please notify that the issuance of permit is passed. I will close the public hearing on that. Appointments. Introduction of the new library director. Sam, you want to take the honors?
Yes, absolutely. Gladly. Come on over, Liz.
It's like a trap getting out there.
Good evening, you all. I have the great pleasure of introducing Melissa Hewitt, our new library director. And wrote a few words, so that's all I'm reading right now. She's taken over as library director of the Barrington Public Library. She has a deep-rooted connection to public libraries. From a young age, she felt at home in the library, as so many of us do. She brings with her the passion for lifelong learning and the heart to bring our community together as well. She's technologically savvy, thrives in chaos, and an all-around great fit for our town. She comes to us with her MLS degree from Rutgers University and with the unique background of running a public high school library. And we see great things for Melissa here at our library. So we'd like you all to join us in welcoming her.
yes, definitely.
I look forward to working with all of you and getting
Please.
to know. I look forward to working with all of you guys and getting more familiar with town politics and that sort of thing, and getting to know the town and the community more, so I can bring it back and think, how can we do things a little different, appeal to different people, that sort of thing. So I look forward to working with all of you guys and being part of your community. So thank you.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I must say, we had an enjoyable Sandy. I really enjoyed it.
It was
I'm
nice.
I'm glad you
was
signed
very
on with the library.
Yeah, thank you for coming too, that was great. It was
Yeah,
nice to
free
see
food.
a lot of familiar faces.
Free coffee and donuts.
That's it, that's right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to stay up?
Anybody have any other comments or questions?
Is there any appointments?
Alternate appointment on the agenda for me?
We have appointments on, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
good for
will you
later.
come back up for that?
I don't have it done until new business.
Okay, I'll
So-
come back after. Thank you.
Chief Williams. Chief Williams is going to give a little talk on space analysis.
Thank you.
Preface that with little.
Yeah. Very little, very little. So thanks for putting me on the agenda. Throughout the course of this has been an ongoing matter that we've discussed at length. November, I laid out the lien process. Officer Barber and Sergeant O'Brien did that with me. So we're just moving forward. I've heard, from some members of the board to do a space analysis needs. So that's why I'm here tonight. I've talked with the town administrator, who's given me direction to move forward on that. So I really just want the support of the board, that everybody's on the same page, so we can just do this together moving forward, and that, there's, out of good-heartedness, sometimes we go individually down different roads. So I just really wanted the board support on moving forward. And again, if it's left to me, I'd keep the police and fire together under the same roof line. Chief Walker and I have discussed that at length, and I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense financially, and I think it makes sense for all the other reasons that you've heard before. So I'd like to start with that to begin to conduct the space analysis needs.
Dan?
I have concerns on the loading of the lot. If the septic will take any additional load with the expansion and stuff. And then you have a 4K area designated in case that one fails. Because if anyone else goes for add a bedroom, the state makes them show a 4K area if the system fails. So before you spend a lot of time, I think I would start there, me personally.
I think that once we get started there, the analysis of the property will be there, so we'll know how the septic system works. Any other questions? Please.
When I think of a space analysis, what are, I don't know, there's a lot to that, so what exactly are we talking about there?
Square footage, flow, footsteps, things like that. You know, that's the direction I've been given, that's the direction I'd go at. You know, setting up a committee that I've already done for the lean process. And that's where I'd begin. I'd begin with square footage spacing needs and have it all encompassing. I've reviewed a 61-page report of, you know, on what to go off and things like that, but there's a number of different ways, you know, and it's not, what I found so far is there's no silver bullet, if you will. There's no right or wrong way. There's no absolute square feet. You know, there's some studies that talk about square feet per person should be X amount, but it varies from every community. There is no standard. So it's looking at different town facilities is what this 61-page report talked about, and trying to compare certain things from other government facilities and incorporating them into the police department. Or just simply looking at other police departments. I can share with you, I've looked at a couple of those and it's all over the map. Different square footages per officer, different square footages per our one civilian employee, but it's not going to be this national standard. Best practices says do 350 square feet per person, which is one study. And one study said out of 23 different police departments that were analyzed in the state of California, that to me isn't comparable to New Hampshire, were completely different. But it said if they analyzed all the way down to 12 officers, you can find this online, to hundreds of officers. And the agencies that were roughly 250 square feet per person, that's all they did was complain about need more space, need more space. If they're up around 350, 300 to 350, they had no complaints on spacing analysis. Does that mean we're good at 200, 250, or 350 feet? I think that's what we got to look into. But there's just, at the end of this, it's not going to be, we modeled after another community. And if we do that, you'll see the numbers actually go up.
From my standpoint, the only thing I would like to see is, usually you start with a needs assessment, and then from there you build out on a space analysis. So we know what the needs were from the regulatory end last year, but what are the actual department needs?
Yeah, I think we laid that out well in November. I do. What are our needs, you know, for risk and liability, risk and regulatory is how we laid it out. We identified, you know, the areas of, let me flip back. Gender separation was one of them. Weapons control, public and prisoner separation, facility security, records security and CJIS compliance, juveniles, and training was the focus of our lean process. So we know where those are, and we know our deficiencies. And it's, since since I've been there for almost 2.5 years now, it's clear to me what they are. My job, I think, is just going to be educating the public on what we need moving forward. It really is a simple process. It's very detailed and involved, but I think at the end of it, it's, you know, what do we need? And I know what we need, and we basically laid that out. So now it's putting the square footage to what we need, in where. You know, we've talked new police department off campus. I call the public safety building the campus. If we go off campus, it's going to be more money. We had soft quotes, if you will, in writing that the board had. You know, it's about $128 a square foot to remodel, renovate type. And it was $173 for new construction. So to me, it seems more cost effective to stay on campus, which is where I'd want to be anyways, and where the officers would, and the fire department is still happy to have us. So I think that's the best approach. But I don't want to start from zero, because we already have an existing footprint to work on. So that's really where I'm going with the board today is, well, did you look at a new building, chief? No, I didn't. I looked at our existing footprint and how can we best utilize the space that we currently have. Because I think it's two different studies. And regardless, the price is the price, and it was from grown builders who've built police departments in the past. 173 for new construction, 128 for reno addition.
Are you satisfied with the statement? Or would you have further need some more information?
No, I don't know if I need more information. It's just not, the one thing we know is it is not fully complete because that was the cost of the building. It's not the cost of the septic systems, it's not the cost of electric upgrades, it's not the cost in the current building of putting a sprinkler system in. I fully agree we need to go do something. I just want to make sure we have it documented well, because what happens is you end up with scope creep. You start in one place and you end up someplace totally different.
And then when we have to make the presentation to the public, we want to have as close to the figure that we need to have.
This was our needs assessment that was done. These were the deficiencies that were identified. Here's what we determined we needed. This was our plan forward and how we went and looked at it, and then here's the data that we got to.
Thank you. Any other board members have questions? I have one for you. Is the population of the town have play in any manner whatsoever in what you're putting together?
I'm looking at it as the staffing analysis that we had done, which showed, in my opinion, we need about 15 total police officers. Today. And I really appreciate the board and the public's support for giving us and voting in favor of the budget where we can add an additional officer this year. So I really appreciate it. And that's what I'm looking at. Today and tomorrow, and I think we'll be able to get to, you know, that through the space needs. But it's going to be for today and tomorrow.
The reason I asked that question is because you're setting the requirements down, and I'm looking ahead to the fact it's probably the fire chief as the public, you know, might have some other issues where because of the size of the population increase and everything else, that he might have other needs also.
Yes.
So is it best that we just do, you know, a renovation, or that we turn around and look at? So when your report comes back, I'd like to have those questions answered as close as possible so we can turn around and put it all together, and then make a presentation to the public and have their input also. Appreciate it. Does anybody else on the board have any other questions?
I have one question, and I have absolutely no basis for this other than I can recall there was a conversation about it, but over the fire station, there's space that's non-usable because it's not universally compliant, is that correct? There was one section that was built that is not usable for offices? No.
Well, the mezzanine above the bay area on the on both sides that are storage are not handicapped accessible. So you've got the space that you access off the truck bays that's not usable for anything other than storage. But there is a bathroom, 2 offices, an exercise area, and a large room area that are regularly used. In fact, when I was first hired, finance and administration was working out of those offices.
But it is an ADA compliant.
It
Yes,
is that section.
They have an elevator, they do have an elevator, Tracy.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I was.
that section is
Okay.
ADA. It's the section around the truck bays where there is a fair amount of upstairs storage that's not ADA.
Mrs. Hatch, do you have anything?
No, he actually, Bob answered it. I was wondering if when you size the offices, if they're going to vary with the use.
We'll need certain office space for, supervisory people to have offices and have their documents and things like that secured. So there's different needs where, like when I talk about weapons control and things like that, that room just can't be drywall. That's going to have to be, potentially
Constructed
bulletproof
safe.
if they haven't had an accidental discharge, which has happened at many different agencies. And there's still a bullet hole at our current facility that's been epoxied over before my tenure. But again, these things happen, and they just do. But we recognize they do, and we got to fix it. So there'll be different things for different uses. Yes, does the women's locker room need to be the same size as the men? How big does the weapons room need to be? How big does a juvenile area need to be? A conference room? Can we share the existing conference room? So there'll be a number of different things. And I called it double bunk, I think, in November. We could reduce certain areas and double bunk officers, double up on supervisors. If the room was just a little bigger, although we'll call it a supervisor's office, if it was a little bigger, we could get 2, maybe 3 in there, especially if we ran different shifts and supervision on different shifts. So that's where, I hope that answers your questions without muddying the water too much.
Do we have any other questions on the space analysis?
You'll be including training facility, there'll be a training room as well.
I'm actually looking to steal a portion of the fire department's room for that and do a door, and we laid out, there is a design, a conceptual design that we had grown do. And if you don't have a copy, I can get you a copy, but I know each board member had one, back in November.
Yeah.
And again, it's sharing. That's why it's really 2 different things to look at on campus versus off campus. Because on campus, the fire department, police department can share a number of things, and conference room is one of them.
You'll be plowing one parking lot, you'll be heating one building,
Yes.
you'll be, okay.
The Selectmen there does bring up a good point. If the system were to fail, I think the legal requirements we have to meet, the new requirements. So there are those concerns, but moving forward, I think it's best, and that's really where I want the board to be. Do you want the police to go off campus or stay? And we waited for the vote to find out what the town hall was going to do, all those types of things. So I'm sensing that I can move forward, I'll do this study, I'll do this analysis, and literally probably just package it all up so we can regroup. Since November, memories may run thin. I know I can't hardly remember what I had for dinner 2 nights ago. So I'll lay it out, from start to finish again to get everybody back to where do we come from, why are we here, what's this, what's that.
One last question, Chief, do you have a particular police department you think that we should field trip to?
I hear the Bow Police Department is absolutely beautiful, but I haven't been in yet, and they said it's so nice that, it's once you go in, you won't want to leave. So, no. Unless you want to use that as the benchmark.
Okay.
Durham just did a build-out.
Redwoods is fairly new as well, right?
Yeah,
Or combined
Farmington just
station.
built one, and Farmington did a public safety. I've been in that one, it's really laid out nice, it's laid out well. Things were really well thought out. Durham did an addition, and there was concern, can the police department stay there if you do an addition or remodel? Of course, yes. It's difficult, but we can. Agencies do it all the time. So,
I'd like to move on. Is there any more questions pertaining to the study? Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
Next on the agenda is Peter Cook.
First, I'd like to say, welcome aboard. I hope it's everything you
Dream.
really wish it to be. Last week I asked to be put on the agenda. Got an awful lot to say, and I'm not going to bore anybody with what I have to say. I didn't pass public speaking. I got a D in that course because of my direct comments. Recently, I'm getting a lot of questions and a lot of things that I'm chasing down for singular selectmen. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that. I thought the Board of Selectmen was actually that, a board, and things that they asked for was because the group as a whole wanted them, not because of one singular selectman wanted them. And I guess I'm asking for clarification on that. That's all I'm going to say.
Peter, excuse me, do you have any particular reports that you're referring to? All right. Is there any other comments from the board? Tracy, do you have any?
No, I always feel like the department heads are the knowledge experts within the town, and that our job is to do as much as
Andy?
possible.
There's nothing specific to talk about, so.
Thank you, Sedge.
I think Peter's referring to me, and I'm not ashamed what I did. Me and Peter do not get along.
We're not going to go into,
I can do it.
we're not going to go into personal attacks.
All right, no,
Right now,
I'm
we will
I'm
take,
identify.
we're going to take care of the reports issue that he brought up. So I am also one that has asked for a specific report on the amount of streets he plows, and also that's what I've asked for him singularly. And that's it, so.
Well, on the agenda,
Please.
can I address this?
That's not what we're addressing now. We're addressing this piece right here. And what I'm saying is, he's brought up the reports. So if you want to talk about the reports, you can.
Is it reports only?
That's it. That's all it is. That's what he brought up. That's what we're going to stay to.
I'll address that.
Okay, please do.
This brought up a while ago. We've asked for other information in the past, and we never got it, about culverts and then different things. And then about the pavement itself, the studies that were done. And we never really got any input on that. I would too like to see more information on that. As a chair, second.
Does anybody else have anything else to comment on Peter's?
Still does not answer my question. Am I supposed to jump through hoops for one singular selectman when they have a question, or am I supposed to answer the group as a whole? That's my question.
Peter,
That's all I'm asking.
that was
And I'm
coming.
not,
No.
I'm not singling anybody out.
No, you don't have to. I know you're not. One of the items that we have discussed prior to is the fact that we have said here, under the agreement that we brought out earlier, I don't know if you got a copy of it or not, Tracy, on what the selectmen is, we've said that it'll go through the chair. At the time it was not myself, go through the chair, and also to go through John, the town administrator, to get these reports done. That's how we said it was done. We made that public before, and that's how it's going to be. John, you have something you want to say?
Yes. I think it's quite clear in my job description and in the structure that the board adopted, in my contract, that it should be going through me. as a town administrator, and that I then work with the department heads. No one selectman has the authority to demand anything. It's only as the board acting in a properly called meeting make decisions that something can be demanded. Now, that being said, there are often things that come to me, it makes sense, I can ask for it, I pass it on, I pass questions to the attorneys or elsewhere. But I do think that the selectmen have to be careful that they don't exceed their authority by acting as individuals instead of acting as a board.
That's exactly what that report stated that I handed out there. Any more comments on Peter? Mrs. Hatch?
Well, I should have said this right up front, and I didn't. I abstained from discussing snow plowing, sanding, and anything that goes with that, because we work for Peter, and I feel that it's a conflict of interest to be talking out of both sides of my mouth, which I may do. So I just would like that in the record, that
Any other comments on Peter's comments? That's for the board. Chief, I'll give you on public comment, please. Okay? Thank you. Any other comments? All right, moving on, we'll go to public comment. Chief?
George,
What?
I would just advise you to remind everyone that public comments are.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I was reminded to remind everybody that comes up to speak, public comments is limited to 3 minutes.
I just want to speak to that same issue. I think the concern the road agent's expressing, and we've all done it from time to time, is sometimes we'll get an individual selectman that will want to know a question, and sometimes we can find an answer in a short amount of time, and sometimes it might take a while to get that information, and that can get into the point of how we're going to spend hours trying to determine the information. And to kind of piggyback what Administrator Scruton has said, it's, you know, if you were asking the questions about a particular item, sometimes it might interest one selectman and the other 4 really don't care about it. But if it's going to take the department head 3 or 4 hours to get that information, the other 4 might decide that we don't want to pay that department head to do 3 or 4 hours worth of work to get that information. It's not that important to us. So a formal vote would be taken to say you're in favor of it or you're not. And I think that's really what the road agent's asking for, is that we sometimes get confused. I'll go as a cemetery trustee. I asked Andy to go to the technology committee with a recommendation from the cemetery association on where do we want to go. And you know, Andy and I talked briefly about it. I don't know if the whole technology committee did, but we're looking for a little bit of guidance on that particular issue, and we're going to move forward with it, but and try to come up with a plan that will work for the town. I'm all for saving money. I think every department head here is all for saving money. And so I would just caution the entire board that just because one selectman thinks something's a good idea, they really should run it by the other 4. As Ms. Hatch says, the 5 of you, your job is to set policy for the town. And when I come walking in looking for a piece of equipment or something, can we afford to do it? Is this the right time to do it? And if we need to come up with the resources to do it, that's what I view your job as. So I just ask you to think about that. If you want us to do stuff, I'm happy to do it, but it's a lot easier if 3 out of the 5 of you or 5 out of the 5 of you say, Chief, this is what we want done. And I think that's what Cody's asking for.
Thank you.
That being said, the board has to be careful of a quorum communicating to make a decision outside of a declared meeting. So it's not like one selectman can go to another one and that one to another one on something that you want. It's coming through me, and I can ask something of a department head if it makes sense, and you know, I can make that judgment call, or at a meeting, the board deciding it's worth the expenditure of time to have the department head focus on this instead of something else.
I think you're absolutely right, but what has to happen also is that we have to by going through you, we have some way of monitoring where we stand, and even though that, we sometimes may have an issue, I still think when the select person goes to you and asks to have that information, I think there's a reason behind why they're doing it. Maybe they have some other issue that they want to look at to either help the town or to help save some money, but at least it'll go through you so you can turn around and piece it together so it'll work right.
And the other important reason to do that is so that I can pass it to all five. So all five have the same information. So if I get something from, say, John Wallace on a committee or from Peter, I forward it to everyone. It's public information. People in the public, most of it, unless it's personnel or something, most people can have access. I'll mark it confidential if it's one of those few documents.
Any other comment from the board on this issue?
No, but I do have public comment.
Okay, you have public comment, please.
Thank you. So that this doesn't continue to be a sweatbox, I know it's one way to expedite a meeting, but can we turn the heat off?
All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
No. John Huckins, can you see if you can figure out how to shut that off? I don't know.
Like somebody hit a switch somewhere.
So the heat's on? I thought that was AC running up there.
No, I wish it was the AC.
If it was the AC, wouldn't hear anything.
I'll take freezing.
There's a thermostat on the wall and it may be locked.
Yeah, or something.
Holy
Can't see the up and down.
Dan, you want to open that door for just a little bit?
There we go.
Oh, I'm trapped.
They'll just make the heat run more.
Right. It's now at 65.
You had nothing ready to
No, that was it.
Mike, please.
Good evening, Michael Hastings. Briefly, for probably the biggest part of the last 3 decades, I've worked in the highway construction industry. And the company I work for currently was the largest in the world. In those 3 decades, I've worked with highway departments ranging from as far south as Boston and Watertown, as far west as Marlborough, Mass., as far north as Tamworth, New Hampshire, and as far east as Portland, Maine. Worked with a lot of them. This town is very fortunate. Take my word for it. I've seen a lot of things dealing with these public works departments. I've had to deal with unions. I've seen instances of theft of time, theft of public property, a lot of politics. In Barrington, you don't have that. You have a very small highway department, and I won't say that I always agree with Peter on all issues. I don't want a highway department like Dover or Rochester. I don't want to see an $18 million proposal for a highway garage, but I think what we have is very cost efficient. We've got a very good group of guys down there. They all work very hard, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have to rate your highway department at about a 13. They really do an excellent job. They're probably, they've done outstanding, and they've done it for a long time. And again, I don't agree with Peter on all issues, but that's just my honest opinion from, 30 years of building highways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments, please?
Are we going to talk about Peter's attributes? Because I'd like to say something.
If you want to have public comment, you're welcome to come up there.
I'm Doug Hatch. I've known Peter since we were this tall. He's been road agent forever. We plowed the town. He comes through for us if we have a breakdown or something. He has the spare part if we need it. We try to do the same with him. It's a well-run fluid. We don't have the accidents. We don't have the deaths on our highway, especially in the wintertime because of the maintenance on the roads. I think speaking from that part, during the summer, The roads are maintained. And I've worked with several highway departments too, and it's a tight unit. I don't always agree with Peter, but he gives me $5 and I'm happy, and we can come to a compromise. Anyway, I just want to compliment how well he runs the team.
Any other public comment?
Casey O'Brien, 24 Hall Road. Congratulations, Tracy, for
With a big grin on his face.
taking the big chair. A couple little things. I'm a little frustrated with what I'm hearing in the public. Now that Casey's not on the board, everybody he protected is no longer protected. I feel that that is a bogus statement. People that have said it ought to think about what they said, because I'm only one person. I'm not a board of 5. So to hear that is really frustrating and making me a little upset hearing it. The second comment I have is I'd like to know what the board's goals are for this year. We set goals last year and didn't succeed with, I don't think, any of our goals. So I'd like to get a jump on what the 5 of you really want to see done in this town overall over the next year, and hold you to the fire for that and see if we can get them done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Any more public comment? Thank you for your comments. Moving on, review of the minutes of March 21st. Any comments?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Have they been fixed and then amended?
George commented that they were fine.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'll second the motion.
There,
Well, I see I'm used to using.
Bailey, aye. Go ahead. All right.
Patch, aye.
Thank you very much.
Hardikoff, aye, because I was at the meeting and they were accurate.
Okay, moving on for Administrator Scruton for his staff report.
The first item I have is the opening of truck bids, the opening of the public safety boiler replacement bids. We have 2 bids that came in by the 4 o'clock deadline today, and I'll pass them down to the chairman to open for the 2 bids for the public safety boiler.
You want to see me at Christmas? Yeah, I don't have much.
We need a letter like this. Okay, see? John to the rescue.
John, I can't get it.
You open the other one, I'll open this one.
John, you just noticed that?
Yes. I sent it out before I went on vacation, so it would have been in the middle of around the 14th, 15th, I probably.
There you go.
Well,
Oh, it is.
moving on, we'll take this one first. Cards. This bid is from Moses Hart's Heating and AC LLC here in Rochester. Facility. For page 2. Page 3, the overall total bid for bid, there's no options. The install, there's nothing there. There's an 80-gallon tank. Price is included. The total price is $51,780. Any comments? $51,780. That's from Moses Hart Heating and I don't mean air conditioning LLC. Any comments from the board?
What's that question? What size tank?
That's for the heating system, the safety building.
Yeah, it says they're going to use an 80-gallon tank.
2 boilers, propane,
with an 80-gallon option.
Okay.
That was supposed to be an option.
Is that for hot water?
Well, that's Moose's, but that's what you
Yeah.
were bidding on.
Yep.
We're not purchasing the LP tanks with this?
Beg your pardon?
That is not part of the bid.
There's no part of the bid that includes purchasing the liquid propane.
Correct.
No.
Right.
Nope, sorry.
Or the tanks.
Thank you, John. I notice we have a check from Cobb Plumbing. This invitation comes from Cobb Plumbing on Hall Road. Cobb Plumbing Heating and LLC. 7 pages. Go through the bid. Go to the last page, Casey, okay. $42,100. He puts disposable, disconnect on the plumbing and install 2 boilers included at $2,500 for the disconnect. 80-gallon units are at $4,800. Plumbing for those units is $1,800. Total price again is $42,100. And that is from Cobb Plumbing Heating LLC.
What's the
John?
My suggestion is that we send them to Paul Sanders to have reviewed by the engineer and come back with a recommendation for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question. There is a check attached to Cobb Plumbing. We didn't receive one of the other. Was that a requirement?
I would have to check the specs.
All right, well,
Yeah,
just let it be known, we have a check for $842.
Casey says it
The bid
was.
specs are right on the front sheet there, and if you read through it, it says that you need a 2% bid check, so that you hold to your bid and you don't pull back and pull out.
Was there a check with the other?
No, there isn't. I will
It's in the
review-
brown
I will review
envelope.
it again in a minute.
We should only lost.
Down here, the last sentence, it says bid security will require the amount of 2% of the project cost. Thank you very much.
Just hand it to me and I'll put it back in the envelope.
Well, everybody always gave me a hard time about opening up the envelope. I figured it would either be George or Andy, so.
Your statement is understood.
That's big as well, huh? I had to go, my daughter was
No, as I said before, the only 2 cards that are in here, business cards, and there is no check. The company, Moose's Hearts.
We will note that. That may be disqualifying, but we'll bring back a recommendation and then the board can make a decision.
Would you please pass that to John? Thank you very much. Any other comments from the board on the opening of the bids?
The manufacturer of the 2 equipments, were they the same?
Oh, I didn't read that part of it. That's what we're going to send it to the, Paul's going to review it and get back to us with it.
Yeah, that's usually done by the analysis.
Yeah, I mean, we had an engineer develop the specs, so we're gonna have the engineer look at it.
And then when it comes back, we'll have a chance for review. You should receive a copy before it comes here. We can go that way there. And John?
Okay, next item has to do with the truck bid. You have in front of you a memo from Peter Cook. It's my recommendation after opening the bids March 10th. His recommendation is we accept the bid from Granite Ford on the cab and chassis for the Ford 550, and that we accept the bid from HP Fairfield for the plow wing, dump body, and sander. The Ford 550 from Granite Ford was the only bid we had. Peter recollection was the HP Fairfield bid was slightly lower than the, Peter? My understanding is the HP Fairfield bid was slightly lower than the other bid, and we've had good experience with HP
We had
Fairfield.
two. One was Viking, and one was Fairfield. Viking was, with counting sander, Viking was 43,375. Fairfield, counting the sander, was 42,251.
And you've had good experience with HP Fairfield.
That's, yeah.
They've done most of our work.
They've done most of our work.
Yep.
The truck is 55, so the total for both, truck, plow, wing, sander, body, comes up to 98,151.
And this money, just for the board to be clear, is coming from the money that was approved by the legislature last year as an extra payment to municipalities that had to be used for highway projects. We bought the pickup truck out of it. After we buy this, there'll be a little bit left that the board will then have to decide how it is used, but this will pretty much use up, it was $185,000 total to begin with. So there'll be $35,000, $40,000 left.
Looking for a motion, do we have one?
I have a comment on this.
Let's get the motion, we'll have comments after we get the motion in a second, if we get that. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Comments?
I assume the motion is to accept the recommendation.
No, we need another second, please. To accept the recommendation we have here.
I seconded it, so I should.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Do I have a second? I'll second it for, this is a discussion. Discussion?
Before bids went out, I have a problem out where all bids are running in this town and stuff. I don't know why people are not bidding the town. So before the bids went out, I went to talk to John Scruton. I have nothing against Peter Cook. We don't see eye to eye. I don't hate the guy, whatever. But on this, so I went to John Scruton, gave him 3 magazines, must move cab and chassis. They were a dime a dozen. I said, make a call or have the road agent or his staff do it. And then the posting came up, had a comment on by other selectmen about the way it was posted, so we were a little confusing. And we received one quote, and I just can't understand why. And waiting for the road agent's letter here. So in best interest of the taxpayers, I stopped by and called to get quotes. I talked to the vice chair and stuff. I walk in and I had them email for information only with no promises and asked them why they did not quote. They said, well, we don't, I had a statement from Portsmouth Ford, we do not bid towns. If we call and ask, we'll give you a quote on what we have there. We do not bid towns. All right, so I asked them to send information to the road agent and the town administrator. I was in Bill Doobie, and I guess he missed, I would talk to the salesman, I guess he missed the bid and stuff. He made contact with the road agent. I said, well, can you do a follow-up? But Ford did a shutdown on the computers, so they couldn't get any pricing. And so I said, well, let's forward it to the road agent and the town administrator. So out of them 2 bids, there was a big savings. There could have been more, but it's for informational purposes only. So when we're sitting here making a decision, we have 3 quotes in front of us.
You actually have 1 truck and chassis quote.
Yeah. But how could, we don't make a decision on that? That's why. So I went on my own. That might be micromanaging us, but I'm looking out for taxpayers. And why aren't people bidding our town? And that's what I want to know. I found out. If I was in the wrong, fine, but I didn't make any promises. I want informational purposes and get a future people to bid on stuff in this town.
I think one of the reasons they don't bid this town is because we frequently go out again, or at times we don't take the low bid.
Well,
I think that's, I
my
think those
question
2
is,
things result in
my
more
question
people not
is,
bid.
John, why wasn't the comments I made you before the bids went out, why weren't these calls made to other places?
We did make I called Liberty Truck to make sure they knew about it. I called the firm in Connecticut that had the state bid and made sure they knew about it. Peter, I think you contacted,
Ford dealership, Dodge dealership, Chevy dealership.
you contacted several dealerships as well. Now, we put it in the newspaper. How much money have we spent putting ads in the newspaper? I mean, because they cost about $200 a piece now. Can you,
7, was it 7?
seems to me $700 rings a bell with me for
I
something.
believe, huh?
How much does
I
it cost?
believe it was $400 the first time and $400 the second time.
Yeah, I mean, we put it in the newspaper, we contact the garages that are local. As I said, I contacted the one in Connecticut that has the state bid. You know, you can't force them to come in and bid. Now, the other option is to go out for quotes, but when you do, but the bid, that would require the Board of Selectmen waiving the bid policy, but if that's what you want us to do, that's a board decision if you don't want to go firm bid. You can reject the truck and chassis bid. I see nothing wrong with the plow wing, dump body, and sander bid, because that's right there going to be a unique entity and independent of what you do with the truck. But as far as the truck, if you want to reject it, if you want to give us authority to go out, the problem with going out and getting quotes is they don't like to hold it for 2 weeks or for 4 weeks or for a great length of time. So, I mean, it's up to the board how you want to proceed.
John, thank you for your comments. Is there any other comments to be made? Excuse me. You had to do somebody else's turn. Anybody else have any comments? Please.
I have the same concern that when we put it out, we get one bid back, and I did comment on the bid spec. I thought it was poorly crafted. So I did share my feedback on it.
Remember that, yep.
And it really kind of leaned specifically to a Ford. It wasn't.
No, it didn't. It did not. It's a
Excuse me.
Peter?
Peter, please.
When something is written that way,
You'll get your shot.
it creates a perception. So, I mean, I am disappointed to see one truck bid, especially when you can go out and as Dan has shown, we can go out and buy a cab and chassis that is pretty much the same thing for less money.
Your comments, please?
Yeah, this is exactly how it worked. Before the board came up with the go out to bid policy, that's how it was done, just like he said. And there's members on this board that will agree with me. And it was said by this board that they didn't want to do that no more because they felt that I wasn't contacting proper people. So they decided to go to bid. We went out to bid, we got 2 bids. Didn't like those 2 bids, I went out to bid again. I got 1 bid. I can't make people bid. I can ask for the bid. I can't make people bid. I guess that's all I got to say.
And if I can comment, I know Peter felt, and I tend to agree with him, the problem with the spec was it said a 1-ton truck when it should have said a medium-duty truck. It did not, though, specify a Ford. It said similar to a Ford 550, which would be a 4500 Chevy or Dodge, I think it is. But there's a comparable. There are 3 very similar trucks, and I actually think there's even one international that's similar in the GVW. In retrospect, if we put it out, we could put it out as GVW, but specifying similar to a Ford 550 didn't limit it to Ford.
I agree with that. That's not what I said. I said it created a perception of it.
Wow. Now that we're at that point right now, we've had comments made. There's a motion. I second it for discussion. What?
I'll run my comment.
I thought she was done.
No.
What comment do you?
I have estimates, quotes, made out the town of Barrington. There's a $9,000 difference. And these things, they'll uphold these quotes, and they were forwarded to you, John, and to Peter. I have no personal gain on there, but there's a big spread in difference in money as a taxpayer.
I don't disagree that, but The board, we did what the board asked, which was to put it out to bid. We brought in the bids.
I have no argument
If you
on
want to reject all the bids and authorize Peter to go and get quotes, we can do that.
All right, we're going to move with this here. We've had comments with everything else. Now,
I would just like to say, I would make a motion to let Peter go do it. We followed the bid process, we don't agree with the bid, I would make
we
a
already have
motion.
we have a motion on the table,
Right,
Mr.
no,
Knapp,
second
and it
motion.
says right here. So how do we want to take this here? And I will take your second motion after this here is done.
I think you either vote on the first one or withdraw the first one.
That's right, you can do one or the other.
So
So
why don't you just vote on the first one?
you want to withdraw the motion? Or do you're in a tough spot. Your first meeting, I can understand that.
Well, I have, my reaction to this is, if you continue to put things out to bid, you receive a bid, you reject the bids, you're not encouraging, if I understand this correctly, you're not encouraging businesses to bid.
Right.
It takes, I know this from my own personal business, but it takes a large amount of time to do research and put proposals together. And if it is not in the best interest of the people selling you a product to bother to bid, because each time bids are rejected and you then go out and meet one-on-one individually, it's no wonder that they're not taking the time to write a proposal. That's my take on this. And I understand that $9,000 is a significant amount of money, but I understand that what Peter is saying is he feels comfortable with the piece of equipment, he feels comfortable with the bid process, and I don't think you're talking oranges to oranges, I think you're potentially talking apples to oranges. We either continue with bid processes, put out RFPs, take the bids, or I think we put that aside going forward, because people will not take the time to write a proposal to the town if it's a waste of their time.
I think that in the future, we should consider somebody to review all the bids that go out. If somebody from the board would like to do that, I'm talking about all bids that go out, not just one particular department. We should review the bids and see how they are. But the individual that reviews them should do them within 2 days of the bid being ready to go out, so we can go out. I think that would answer a lot of questions, and it would take care of how we do things. John, you have a comment?
Yes, I don't believe you can do it that way. I think you have to bring it to the board, and the board as a whole has to review and make the decision. You can have one bring recommendations to the board, but I don't think that you can delegate to one selectman to have that authority. I think it's
Just
board
all right, we'll turn around with
authority.
that individual will be here. We'll bring his recommendations to the board, and we can go from there.
I will try to send them to the board. The board can make comments, and then we'll have them.
How does the board feel about that?
Because that isn't what's happening.
No, this is a new policy, but if that's what you
Mr. Knapp,
want.
that's what I'm trying to avoid right now. I'm trying to get that pushed out in front. I mean, Dan spent a lot of time going to do this, and so we're at. Now we'll come right back to the same motion. We want to vote on it. The vote is to approve Peter Cook's memo for the information that's on it. I've seconded for discussion. Now I will second it for the vote. Jan? You vote?
No.
No? Mrs. Hatch?
I don't vote on
Okay.
things that
No.
No?
It's a 20% difference
Tracy?
in the cost of the vehicle.
It won't matter, we won't have a quorum, would be 2 and 2, so.
If it's 2 and 2, then it will pass.
What is it? If it's 2 or 2?
It fails.
It fails.
Tie vote fails.
So the motion has failed.
Well, I will say I'm disappointed because we're at a country, we're doing everything that we've talked about not doing in the past, not approving things. All right, motion doesn't carry. Sorry, Peter.
Well, let me ask a second question. Is there a vote to approve HB Fairfield for the plow, wing, dump body, and sander conditional upon getting a cab and chassis Chad, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Chavez Castle.
Yeah.
And I should be chafing, but that's okay too.
Yeah, they'll fit in 550.
I'll make the motion to approve the.
I'll second it.
For the cab chassis. Or, sorry,
I'm
for
just
the
trying to, so
equipment on it. No, I'm doing it.
I'm supposed to go get prices from dealerships?
Well, that, we haven't got there yet. That's gonna be another motion.
So that's a first,
Was there a
second,
motion here?
and a second. I made the
Yeah.
motion.
Motion, second by Dan.
Okay.
Air aye.
HP Fairfield.
Bailey, no?
Nap aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Okay. Now, the next issue is, do you want to authorize Peter to go get quotes? If you have a list of 4 or 5 garages you want him to contact, please give it to him, and he will come back with the best quote at the next meeting.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I have a comment on it.
Do we have a motion to
I'll
that
make
effect?
a motion to.
Comments come
Peter
afterwards.
I'll second it.
Have a second? Comments?
To have Peter talk to different garages for quotes.
Right, but limited to 4 or 5 from any one selectman, so you don't give him three books with 300 garages in it.
I have a question if I could, Chairman.
Go ahead, please.
Did you not already do this?
That's the way I used to do it, and then the board said, no, we ain't doing that no more, you go out to bid. Now I'm going back to doing that, I guess.
Hang on.
I disagree with that statement, because we're still bidding. We're not stopping the bidding process. There is nothing that has been put forth to stop the bidding process. The secondary part of this is, as a board, we have the right to reject a bid based on information that we have. And in the best interest of our town, it makes sense to move forward by doing it the other way. Now, if you want to spend 20% extra of your own money, that's perfectly acceptable, but I don't think that's acceptable for us to do with the townspeople's money.
Let's stay on track with this thing here before we, do you have a comment?
I have 2 quotes directed to.
That's not
Yeah,
part of
that
it.
made the town.
You've already spoken about it.
If you give him the names of the garages, he will put them on
You
the
have
list of those he
You have them.
We're asking you, Dan, put them down on a piece of paper.
What garages, if you have 4 garages you want him to contact, please give him a list, otherwise he'll contact the ones
motion?
he usually does in the state bid.
Do we have a second? Second is to approve, have Peter go out with information from the selectmen and the recommendations of who we should contact when we go out for.
I have a motion, I
getting quotes.
don't have a second.
You had a
We had
second.
a second on Dan.
Oh, Dan did, okay.
Any other comments?
Question.
Please, Peter.
Is there a radius? Because I saw a hell of a deal in Alaska the other day, I'd like to go look at it.
As long as they pay the delivery. All right, so
Was there a vote?
No.
Tracy, start with your end.
I have to say no, and the reason that I have to say no is because I believe in the process that you put forward, and I think that Peter knows what the most appropriate truck is, and the apples to oranges thing, I mean, I could show you my husband's truck, and he'd probably save a lot of money on that size vehicle. I think he knows what the town needs, so my vote's a no.
I'm sorry, is what?
No.
No? Mr. Knapp?
Aye.
Satch?
I will say one thing. I know bidding is not the most popular thing in the town of Barrington, but it was me that pushed for it ever since I've been on the board, and I still believe bidding is the way to go. If you haven't got what it takes to put it together, fine and dandy. But I don't think you have to rewrite the rules to accommodate people that won't do a bid. And I understand what you're saying about a bid.
So your vote is, we're only voting on one or the other process here. So are you saying, yes, we stay with the bid, or yes, we should go with both?
That's not what the recommendation is, George.
No, I just merely stated, I'm the one that has pushed for bids. I still am not going to vote on a truck because it's still Peter's truck.
The recommendation, the motion is.
I believe
to allow
she's
Peter to
abstaining.
go out for quotes.
You're abstaining, Don, right?
Excuse me?
You're
I
abstaining, yes,
yes.
that's what I thought.
Bailey, no.
Air aye, so.
Motion doesn't carry.
That leaves us with a quandary.
That's right, it does.
Because you got a wing, a sander, and some other stuff, and no truck.
I guess the best thing to do, seeing as the decision can't be made, give the money back to the state, because there's towns that could probably use it more than us.
Thanks.
Public comment?
Not part of it. Board have any other comments they want to make?
When do you have to spend it by? This calendar year.
I would like to make a suggestion to the board. How about we have a cooling off period here for everyone to kind of look at what they think and figure out exactly what they want, and then we discuss it at the next meeting, because it doesn't seem like this is, productivity is ground to a
Well,
halt.
I don't see how this is going, I agree with what you're saying, but I can't see how we allow something like this to slip through our fingers, even though it's I believe in $9,000 of people's savings, but we can work further, work with Peter or anybody else that puts out bids.
George, could you explain your vote not to go out and get a quote?
That's correct. I said no on getting going for quotes.
Okay. Right, so you're not going to, so you would only support going for a bid, correct?
That's correct.
This is the same thing, George.
Yeah.
There's apples for apples, there's the specs on the truck.
I understand what you have right there.
I think you're gonna have to not abstain.
That's not what we're doing, no.
You've gotta go one way or the other.
That's, you brought it, I know it's made out to the town, but it
Probably get killed on the way home.
We'll just make a decision. I mean, you're not voting on the truck, you're just voting on a selection method which relates to whether or not.
Excuse me, let's have an audience.
Well, I would assume that a quote would be the same idea as a bid.
Yes.
And if they are one and the same thing, I'll go along with it. If not, I'll do the bid.
Well, there's a technical difference, but the person who's submitting the quote would not know what the other quotes were. They would know what the first two sets of bids were. So there is an element in which the vendor has to put their best foot forward because they will not know what the other vendors are doing. Which goes both ways, bid or quote.
If you want to change, yes, Tracy.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Peter a question?
Tracy,
Peter, you've indicated that you already went out and talked to other dealerships about putting together pricing for these trucks.
We did that in October.
Okay.
We got, I believe it was 2 bids at the time. I think. The problem is Chevy doesn't have anything comparable to what we're looking for. So they're immediately eliminated or can't do it. Okay? They're coming out with a line, but it won't be done before the end of the year.
Okay.
So the bottom line is that every DOT around uses a 550 or something comparable to it. We have 2. The oldest one is the one I'm looking to replace. So we decided we'd go out to bid. The state come up with money, we go out to bid. We went out to bid, I got a quote from Ford, I got a quote from Dodge, and there was no action on it. So then I was asked to go out to bid again, which I did. And I called the companies, I even called the companies that bid last time. And they, yep, okay. And I told them when the deadline was, deadline coming when I got the 1 bid. You know, it's always easy to get a better price after you bid. I mean, I'm at a loss, I gotta be honest with you. I just don't know, I don't know what to do or say. I'm trying to get something accomplished, and I gotta be honest with you, right now with the leadership we got, nothing's getting accomplished.
I have one other question, Peter. You indicated the 2 other trucks are like the truck that you've recommended.
Yep.
So the one that you're taking out of commission or that has aged out, should we need it, we have potential, are we selling it, or do we have potential?
Once the new one comes in, it'll go out to bid. It'll be advertised in the paper. Once again, there's a cost to that, and you know, the town has such and such and such and such. It has this, and this, and it's accepting bids for the vehicle.
And are the people that are working on these trucks most familiar with this particular truck? So if there's a problem that needs to be...
That's what we got now, that's what we deal with, that's... But
I just want to say that I'm just very disappointed that we couldn't come to a understanding on this. As Peter has reiterated everything we asked him to do, he has done, and now because we're here with this one bid, and Mr. Dan here went up and got quotes, it shows that they're different prices, but these other people didn't take the time to do it, or they missed it, and I just think that they're not helping our highway department by not passing this. Any other comments on what I said? I'm willing to listen to Mrs. Hatch.
Well, no.
I simply did what I was asked, and I'm just looking for the end result, that's all.
George.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. There's miscommunication. I went to dealerships, and they were told me they don't bid stuff in the paper. But I asked them for a quote, and I asked them to send it to the Public Works, to Barrington PA and the Barrington TA. So on these trucks, because of this chassis, 19.5, Ford's the only one that's producing it right now. I don't know if Dodge has a 5500. Dodge has it. So there's two people. Chevy's coming out one this year. International does not have one. So the quotes are comparable. But some of them have wheel simulators that have in stock, but basically, it's cab chassis. It's pretty much basic. You can get a couple of fancy options, but the chassis itself is the same with the bidding on.
Did you share with the people you spoke with what the other bid was?
No. And I told them that the bids already went out. I wanted 3 quotes for this board, so they would know we're not making a decision on one.
And there are the other bids for the Ford.
Yes, same specs. Some of them have extra bells and whistles.
Andy, you made an interesting comment. If I come up with the other $9,000, will that change your mind?
No, because just taking it out of another line item isn't really coming up with the money.
I come up with that $9,000.
Right.
You just said, tonight, you come up with $9,000 and we'll do it.
Like out of your pocket?
Yeah,
Out of town?
yeah. If I come up with $9,000, you're gonna say yes. You're gonna say yes. Are you gonna say yes?
I don't think that would be reasonable.
Then your comment wasn't reasonable.
Let's slow it down, Mrs. Hatch, go ahead.
I think that Peter did exactly what he was asked. He asked for bids, and he got one. And I think he contacted them. He still got the one bid. To me, in all fairness, to the people that made the bid, we honor it.
Grant money. This is grant money.
Yeah, if it's grant money, it's...
Is there a motion for reconsideration on the vote?
There's no freestanding. Something paid for.
Mrs. Hatch, would you like to make a motion for reconsideration of Peter Took's recommendations?
I would make a motion to honor the bid process that Peter did in good faith, and regardless of the fact that we got one bid, that's it. And there may be $9,000 difference, there may not be and don't get me wrong, I'm not calling you a liar.
No, I'm just saying the numbers you threw out.
The numbers, that's the numbers they threw out?
Well, Peter said 55, I thought we were at 50 on them.
Anyway, I just feel that it doesn't speak well for the town to ask for a bid. You get a bid, and just because you didn't get other bids, that bid is no good. So I would make a motion that I feel Peter did exactly what he was asked. If the truck owners didn't follow through with it, that's not, nothing I can do about, but if Ford came through with a bid, then, and who knows, they might drop their price a little bit.
The Rochester Ford bid was $49,999, so we're talking 50, not 55. just to
Okay, so,
clarify that.
and, all right, so it's 49, not 55, so somehow that was
Window
different.
sticker was 55.
Yeah, but the window sticker doesn't mean anything.
Please. I turn around, I'll second Mrs. Hatch's motion.
Well, what's the motion? Is the motion that you're accepting? Because that
Reconsider
was a pretty...
accepting Peter's.
To honor the bid process that Peter did in
To honor the
good
bid
faith.
process on Peter's recommendation dated March 26th. I second it. Comment? Dan?
I have no problem with Peter handled things there, but I personally brought magazine in, I sat down with John.
We understand
And went over
that.
that and stuff,
Yep.
and if he didn't communicate with Peter and stuff, but what I did was not to undermine the situation, but show and ask how you're gonna, I can walk in and get prices for the town. And we have to go over our bids when we're working on that. It's not a business, I did nothing against you, it's about the bid process.
I
And John, I brought
appreciate you getting all those quotes. We understand you got the quotes, there's a lot of work put into it. But right now, we have the quotes to show that there are different prices out there, but right now we're considering the bid of Mrs. Hatch's.
And I'd like it noted that it's 49,000 something, not 55.
That was my mistake, sorry.
Oh,
What's the
well,
difference? Is it still 9,000?
$6,000 difference.
What's your
So
best quoted price?
3,800 difference.
3,800 difference.
Okay, we have,
$800 difference?
excuse me, please, thank you, sir. I know, it's easy. So, we have it with the board, we have a motion, we have a second, is there further discussion?
The difference is only 3,800
That's correct.
at that point.
So all this went on,
So now we're at the point of we're going to have the vote. Tracy, could you just kick off the vote, please?
Aye.
now should I vote on this?
Yes, you have, it's your motion.
Aye.
Aye.
No, because I,
Motion is passed 4-1. Then we are moving on. John, your next subject?
you got it. Bring it forward.
Okay, the next item has to do with the budget that was approved by the voters March 13th. The budget included salary adjustments of 1% COLA and steps for those who received them. That was budgeted in there. Does the board want to implement the budgeted salary adjustment?
We have a motion?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
The COLA is 1%, the steps equate to,
1.75.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second, please?
Who made the motion?
Mr. Knapp seconded. Vote, Dan?
No.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch eye?
Article 5.
Passes 4-1.
The labor contract that was approved at the meeting, I need the chairman's signature on the document, but that was already voted by the board earlier, contingent upon town meeting approval, so now with town meeting approval, I will be getting the chairman's signature.
Very well.
The State New Hampshire Local Advisory Oyster River Board. John Wallace has been on it for a number of years. It's an appointment made by the state upon recommendation by the board. Does the board wish to recommend John Wallace be reappointed?
Or, the other question I'll ask is, does the board want to go in non-public session to discuss this, or are they feeling they want to do it in public and go that way?
I feel very confident with
Thank
this.
you.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointment or proposal.
It's a nomination,
Nomination.
yeah, at this point.
I'll second the
Okay,
motion.
a second. Dan? Approval or not?
I'll start over there. I voted last time.
It's your turn to
All
start.
right, air eye.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch eye.
Article 5.
Does the board, the last time we discussed the Town Lands Committee, the board had a number of names, and the question is the board ready to make the appointments? The board voted the charge for the committee, which was to advise the town on all town lots that were capable of forest management, and the Conservation Commission on those conservation lots that were capable of forest management. do we have names that you want to appoint, or where are we at with the appointment to the Town Lands Committee?
I believe at the last meeting, Dan gave a list.
I have forms that people have signed, and I've mailed you all copies.
Can you read through the names of the forms?
Charlie Tatham, Bill Booty, Brian Lenzi, A.J. Dupuy, David Kay, Tim Pulse, John Janelle, and Ann Melvin.
Does anybody on the board have any objections to those names that were listed?
I do.
Okay, what objections do you have? You can only use the name, you just can't use any other reasoning unless we go in to non-public because it's personal. Who aren't you in favor of?
Charlie Tatham and Melvin, because
That's all you can say. Can't go, she was on it to start with anyway.
So is Charlie.
Okay,
So is Charlie.
yeah, so we have those two names that Dan doesn't want to approve. How does the board feel about that? Is it-
I think that when you're running boards that are voluntary and someone takes the time to volunteer, that you should honor that volunteerism unless there's really something wrong. And certainly Ann Melvin and Charlie have done this. They were just, it was in the paper, I think it was today, that they were honored for something to do with conservation. And how do you get people to volunteer if you say no? Why? What are you saying no for? Unless there's a valid reason.
No. I got it. I got full board.
It's all right, go from there to decide.
I'll make a motion that we nominate how many? 8?
8 names
So
that
in
we
other
read.
words, you'd have a board of how many?
5 no.
5, and the rest would be
Yeah.
alternates.
Yeah.
So you'd have 5 and 3 alternates, which would give the board a lot of help to have 3 alternates. So I would make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have the motion, any further comment?
Okay, what I missed?
All 8 of them are nominated.
Okay, so with, but who made the motion?
I did.
Don made the motion, Andy seconded it. 5 as members, 3 as alternates. We should specify which 3 are alternates.
We can't let them decide?
No, let's let them.
Let them decide.
Decide.
Yep, let them decide.
I'd
Yep.
add that to my motion.
Yep, okay.
Andy, you can approve that? I think the second was approved by Andy. Trey?
Aye.
Andy?
Hatch, aye?
Yeah, 5 votes carried.
Proposed meeting dates. I have a list here of proposed meeting dates for the Board of Selectmen through next year's town meeting. I'm sure there are going to be some that are conflicts for various people. There's a couple even that I'm not going to be able to make. But what does the board think? It's basically the 2nd and 4th Mondays, except in May because of Memorial Day. In July, there's 1 meeting. In August, there's 1 meeting. In September, there's 1 meeting. And then in October, November, you start meeting, you meet every week there from the end of October through November into early December because of budgets.
I think it's a good start, and I just spoke to Tara, and it's the opposite Monday for them, so that it wouldn't conflict with her, because that's the one thing I know Casey and myself, we've had problems because we are here instead of there. So this way, with them having the 3rd Monday and us having the 2nd and the 4th, it might make it easier all the way around.
They have 1st and 3rd.
I wound up
Do
like
they?
a...
It's all right, I'm glad they checked through the program. So,
And the volume up.
yes, it is. I only have asked the board to consider on September. They have September 10th. I'd ask the board to consider going to that for personal reasons for me to the 24th. If not, we can stay with the 10th.
That's fine with me.
I really, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate and love the idea of 1 meeting in the summertime. But is that really functional for us as a board.
We'll find out. We may have to add meetings.
Yeah,
This is
Planning
the
board does
base.
it.
Yeah.
Other boards,
I think we
Right, but they don't have.
we can leave that open if we find that that doesn't work, Andy.
So you want to change?
So I want to change on September, for personal reasons, I'm asking you to go from the 10th to the 24th. If it's a conflict with somebody else, then I withdraw my request.
the only issue becomes, it then becomes a long stretch from August 20 to September. You're going more than a month without a meeting.
I withdraw my request then.
Dawn,
That's a long way.
don't be busy on the 10th.
Am I going to have to work that
Yeah,
day?
you're gonna
Okay.
have to work that.
No, I mean, this is just a starting point, and there can be adjustments,
Yeah.
but it's okay for a starting point.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
I did want to update the board. There was a social...
I have one question.
Yep.
According to my calendar, the January 21st is listed as the MLK Day instead of the 14th as you have it.
Yep, you're right.
What date was it?
That's
21, 14 goes to 21.
I think you're right.
I have the calendar with me also.
Yep, I put that on the wrong side of the January. I'll make that correction. One other thing I did want to mention, there was a workshop that the Municipal Association put on that I attended via webinar on First Amendment rights and social media as it relates to public employees. And I emailed a link for the board if they want to look at that. It's an hour if you want to watch it sometime. And that's all I have.
Did you send that this evening?
Is there any other comments
No,
or
I
questions
sent
on
it. I'll send it again.
what John had? Seeing no one move on. Suzanne?
Let's see, I have 2 intent to cut forms to be signed. A denial of an application for a blind exemption. I have the oath of office for Library Conservation Commission and Zoning Board of Adjustment to be signed. Payroll manifest dated March 18th and vendor manifest dated March 21st. And what else do we have here?
That's the
You
labor
mentioned-
contract.
You mentioned those are one, just the chairman, right?
Yep, I need to have the chairman sign what's called an MS-60A, which says we're using a CPA audit firm.
May I request a non-public just to get clarification on the denial of the exemption? So for reputation.
Let me see if I can answer that. I may have to have Shelley talk to you.
Postpone that till next week then?
She may be able to
It's
answer.
a matter of residency. The person doesn't live in Barrington.
And in order to get the exemption, you need to live in Barrington.
Does that clarify for you, Andy?
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions on Suzanne's report? Moving on to old business. The only comment, does anybody on the board have a comment for old business? I want to go over the old business and the new business. I have asked Suzanne what days she works, and I would ask that if anybody has any items that they would like to put in for new business and or discuss for old business, please get an email either to myself or I prefer to Suzanne by Tuesday evening so that I can sit down with Suzanne on Wednesday and we will go over it and put a agenda in for old business and for new business so we won't come where we're at here right now blind. Does anybody have any objections to that? Fine, thank you.
Can you add goals for that?
Gold?
Add goals, Mr. Public comment, whether you want to establish goals for the...
Well, you put the goals down for old business.
On new
That's
business.
Under old business, it was brought up tonight, it'll be old business, we'll bring it up next week.
2 weeks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
we review the goals, like typically with the strategic plan, you review the last goals first and you see
Yes.
what has not been completed. Could we do that as
Yeah,
well?
that'll be part of the process.
And I'll send out the last year's goals.
Yep.
Or it might have been 2 years ago, I'm not sure. Was it?
We revised them last year.
Last year, okay.
All right, is there any other old business? Moving on, new business?
And I noted my request for oath of office under that I did in my staff report.
Under new business, I would like to discuss the past election in the disappointment of not allowing Keno. I think that I understand Keno is a form of gambling. I understand that some people can get addicted to it. But I also look at the point is that it was a form of raising more money for our kindergarten at for the state level, and we get our percentages divided on the amount of people that we have in the kindergarten. It's not because of the size of the town. So it's just a comment, and I would ask that if it does appear again, that people look at it so we can turn around. We're still going to get our share, but it was only going to go to the facilities that had a liquor license to be approved by the way the state had written it. So that is there for comment, and if anybody has comment with it, we can talk about that under public comments. So, anybody else on the board have one? Yes.
Can we appoint boards tonight?
We could. I'll put that down under new business. Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank everyone that did run for elected positions. I know it's a lot of time and a pretty significant commitment, so thank you to everyone who did it.
People spend a lot of time out there. I would think, if I was running, I would have to say thank you, Tracy, for providing the tent. It sure kept the dew off the lily when everybody was out there, so that was nice. I appreciate that. After a while, I noticed it kind of sagged in the back from the weight, but it was good.
It's an interesting 12 hours on a very cold day.
All right. Also under new business now, we have the approval of the appointments for the library trustees, the ZBA, and the Conservation Commission. Did everybody get that packet that was mailed out? Does anybody have any objections for the approval of the individuals that was listed? I have a motion then.
I make a motion to approve the appointment of the library trustees, ZBA, and Conservation Commission.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All right, Andy seconded. All in favor? Dan?
Aye.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch, aye?
Bye-bye.
Carries?
Thank you.
I want to thank all the volunteers that said they would do it, and I appreciate it. Any other new business the board would like to discuss? Moving on, we go to Selectmen's report. Dan?
Conservation reviewed one thing that was one time the planning board, they clarified the plan, so there was a better understanding and stuff, and then they went to the ZBA. And we are without a ex officio on the planning board.
I'm well aware of that. Do you have any other report?
Yes, I went to the planning board meeting last week too.
Okay, and?
They went over, what did we go over?
I don't know.
Yeah, I've already forgot, sorry.
All right, moving on. Tracy, you have any report? I know you don't have a committee yet.
I don't have a committee
It's
yet.
going to happen very shortly.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at days of the week. I do participate in some other nonprofit boards.
Mr. Knapp, you have anything?
I do not, was not able to attend the school board, I had a sick little boy.
Mrs. Hatch, do you have anything?
School board?
Yeah.
We every other week.
I went to the zoning board
Yeah,
meeting, and
next
granted a
Tuesday.
variance for a piece of property on Mendham's, and that's it. That's what we did.
I have two items. First off, we have is from the library. The library is going to have a little thing called Hanging with My Peeps at the library. Voting is now open. Library patrons can vote for their favorite from March 26th to the 30th at the library. Winner will be announced at the annual Easter hunt on the 31st. I don't understand all of this, but the winning Dorama will receive a gift certificate to Stonehouse Baking Company from the Barrington Library. All Doramas must be picked up by April 6th. Did I forget anything, Sam? Good. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you, George.
And also the other part is that Marie Schmaltz I don't know if everybody knows her. She's on the zoning. She was appointed by ZID, WZID 95.7 as one of the 20 outstanding women in New Hampshire. She got that because she works with Ready Rides. If you're not familiar with Ready Rides, it's a group of volunteers that provide a ride to an individual that has a doctor or has other appointments. I won't go into detail, but I'll tell you, she's worked hard. I remember when it first started off, and she continues to do it, and it's very time consuming for her to do it. So if you see Marie Schmaltz, please congratulate her. That's all I have.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, and the pancake breakfast at the fire station was a huge success.
Well, I tell you, I was very disappointed. I went by it twice and I couldn't find a place to park. I mean, it was, I'll tell you, I wish voting would be that successful, Chief. I really do. Think about that. All right. Now that we're here, we're going to talk about the committee appointments while we're here. Who wants to stay where they're at? You're going to stay at the conservation?
And I'll do the lands committee.
I understand. Would you take the conservation?
Yeah, and lands committee.
All right, so you have that? Okay. I will stay with the library.
I'll carry on with the school.
Carry on with the school.
I'm a member of the zoning board. They appointed me a member so that I'd be there.
Okay.
And, so I'll stay with them.
No good deed goes unpunished.
When is the, when does the planning board meet?
First and third Tuesday.
What was that, please?
First and third Tuesday for planning board.
And we also have...
School board meets the same day.
Are you going to be able to volunteer for that?
I think when is it again? Say it again.
First and third Tuesday.
No.
You'll be our ex officio member.
I cannot do Tuesdays.
Well, we need an ex officio member.
I can't do it. I'll live with it.
No, it's not. I don't agree with you. Damn sure I'm not going to do it.
Well, actually, hang on.
Look at your calendar.
George, the ABC, are you going to continue on the ABC?
I just signed a slip. I was, the last chair very graciously approved me for another 3 years. So it looks like I'll be there till 21.
So, is Dan the alternate for the planning board?
I can't be on the planning board anymore.
Okay. So we're looking for somebody for planning board. We've got Dan Ayer for land. We've got Don for ZBA. We've got Dan for conservation, George for library, and ABC. Dawn, were you doing rec?
She's doing...
I would be happy to do rec, especially now it's kind of worked out so I could go once in a while. Yep.
And Andy's doing the school.
Which means the same night as the planning board.
Correct. So the planning board is the only one that's open right now.
And I can't do Tuesdays.
Would you be willing to give up the...
They meet the same night.
No, let me finish, please.
Sorry.
I was going to ask you to give up the school and take the planning board.
It's the same night. She can't do either.
No, I'm talking to
Andy would
Mr. Knapp. What? Andy's getting school board, yeah.
Right.
No, we can also take the rec
He's
away.
horse trading here. So
Okay,
you know,
I'm just
I know
gonna sit quiet and let you people tell me where to be.
So instead of Dawn doing rec, you're saying you have...
No, I haven't got that far yet. That's the next shoe. It is a stickler. I understand that. And I'm really requesting your help if you can.
In other words, he's trying to make you feel guilty. You could think about it.
No, I'm not. He does a wonderful
Well,
job
I've
at the
already-
school.
I know he
And then
does.
I was,
You want Andy to do planning board? Is that what you're asking?
yes.
Instead of.
Instead of school board? Oh,
Instead of
I
school,
get it.
yeah.
I see now what the
So we
question
just,
is.
Yes, it's just going to put it to the wind, if you really want to know. We don't have a vote, and they do exactly what they deem necessary to ensure that the school is running.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I gotta tell you, thank you very much for doing the do. So Tracy, it looks like you're gonna go to the rec.
Okay.
Don't thank my wife and my
just-
son, because they're the ones that give up the time.
Okay, just for full disclosure, 8 weeks out of the year, my 25-year-old daughter runs the summer camp. So I need to, yeah, I need to
Conflict.
be,
Well, I
hang
don't
on.
mind staying with you.
I'm not sure that it's a conflict because she's not actually paid through the town. She's paid through the rec under a memo of
But
understanding.
you're not gonna receive any monetary from there.
No.
So you said, no, say so. And then that wouldn't be a conflict because Tara and her assistant would be the ones that would be appointing the individuals that work there.
I assume. Is she coming back this year? Okay, so she's gonna work there for 8 weeks out of,
So,
she's a special education teacher in another town. She
That's
was-
only 2 months, only a couple of meetings, so you can slide on that.
Okay.
All right, so that takes care of all of the committees. I want to thank everybody for doing it. Moving on, I have the last public,
Sorry,
please.
George, I'm just, so you pulled it from Dawn and reassigned?
Reassign it to, yes, so Don just has a ZBA.
That's all I was wondering.
Yeah.
And
Thank
this
you.
is opposite Mondays.
First and third.
Okay.
And when Tara has a special meeting, she is very diligent about informing individuals what it is so they can have the other meeting.
And
So I know you'll be well informed.
Okay. And my role in that is to just simply listen, not to participate.
As of now, yes.
Okay.
Yes. George taking school? Moving on, public comment, please. Next public comment.
Good evening, again, Michael Hastings, and hopefully on a lighter note, as with George, I'd like to discuss the results of the recent electoral cycle for the town. And I'd like to say, before my comments begin, that again this year there was a failure on the part of the voters to appropriate money to resolve the issue of the town hall. And I'd like to say, in no way do I view that failure as being something that had to do with either the current board or the current town administrator. I think there are a couple of reasons why it happened. First of all, I think it had something to do with what's known as cultural inertia. We have a very small native populace in the town. I haven't been here quite as long as some of you, but I've been here a lot longer than most of you. And the town has always been rural, it's always been a bedroom community. And I think that most of the people that moved here, the voters, moved here for that reason. And I think they're hesitant to see that change. And I think that's one of the reasons why they tend not to vote for big ticket items. That's one of the reasons. And I think there's another one that's a little bit more unfortunate and has to do with dissemination of information. And again, at no fault to the board, this was something that I received in the mail. And it was Advocates for a Better Barrington, and there were several articles in it. And I'm sure that the person that wrote them was probably well-intentioned, but I think accidentally they probably undermined the authority of the board, and they undermined your efforts, and I think they offended a lot of voters. And there was one article in particular, and it was a short history of cheap versus economical in Barrington. I think it's a very difficult thing to insinuate that people who live in the town, who pay anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year or more in tax money, have somehow in the past been cheap. I think they work hard, houses are expensive, vehicles are expensive. I think in the past they haven't been cheap. I think they've done the best they could. So I think that's something simple, and perhaps in the future the board can offset some of the negative editorializing with some positive editorializing done as a board and not as individuals. And I would have one suggestion. I don't even know if it's legal. I don't even know if it's practical. But the town has a master plan, and for a number of years the town has worked on a plan to create a village district. But that's dealing with the private sector, and it's kind of hard to, dictate what happens in the private sector. But I don't know of any plan that the town ever developed for the long-term growth of our government buildings. We know with certainty in the years to come certain bonds are going to be paid off. And I was just wondering if the town ever thought about developing a plan where they'd say, okay, we're going to, tackle the town hall issue this year, and maybe in 6 years we can do a library, and maybe in 12 a new police station. Because I think that what that does is it gives the voters a reassurance that they're not going to get hit with everything all at once, and it lets them know that they're going to be able to afford to stay in the town. As I said, I'm not sure if that's practical or even legal, but maybe those things would help a little bit. Thank you.
Next public comment, please. Sam?
St. Boda, Community 4 Stanley Lane. First, I just wanted to echo Andy's comment about the once a month meetings during the summer. As much as nobody wants to be sweating it out here in the summertime, with the number of things that the board has on their agenda, I think it would be ill-advised to just cut it down to one meeting a month. Plus, for heads of boards, trustees, whoever, it's helpful to have that sort of accessibility every 2 weeks or so to you fine folks. So that was that. Just airing my opinion there. Second was just wanted to say thanks to everybody that came out to our passing of the torch ceremony on Saturday. It was a good showing as we transitioned from Amy to Melissa, and also honored Ron St. Jean for his 17 years as a trustee. 18 years as a trustee, sorry. Sorry, Ron. Last thing I'll put out there is just more of a public service announcement. The Friends of the Barrington Public Library will be hosting its annual perennial sale on June 2nd from 8 to 12. And I would advise members of the public to get there early because they sell real quick. And thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Sam. Next, please. Steve?
Steve Saunders, Massbrook. I may have missed something, Mr. Chairman, but who among the board is going to liaison with the school board, since Andy's now taking planning?
We don't have anybody at the present time.
All right, I have a big objection to that. Big bulk of our taxes go to the schools, and this is where we get a forum, and I keep hearing this, everybody complains that they're blaming you guys for the tax rate, when it's the school that absorbs the most. I object to not having a representative go to the school board.
Thank you.
Casey O'Brien, Hallroad. Under old business, I'd like to find out some information on Hard Rock, how they're working out with the development of our town land behind International, possibly.
I'll try to get a report.
Since I didn't get that before we left, we didn't get to that, but it'd be nice to know some information on that. Thank you, Chief, and all the firefighters and Boy Scouts for the pancake breakfast. George, just so you know, they did get over 400 bunnies that they gave away, and that's where all the chocolate went.
I'm glad to see they got something.
I just wanted to let everyone to know that tomorrow night, the subcommittee of the master plan, who's currently working on the economic development chapter, will review their first draft. And my suggestion to Administrator Scruton for the next chapter would actually be the facilities and utilities chapter. I thought the timing would be really good. So as soon as we finish economic development, I'd like to start that chapter.
Hi. Tracy, we should meet. We have a lot going on at the rec department. We just had our strategic plan, our needs assessment strategic plan kickoff meeting with Green Play last Monday. Went very well. We've been gathering documents, budgets, all sorts of documents, getting it over to Green Play to make sure they have everything they need to start assessing the recreation department and everything that surrounds that here. So data has been collected. We are passing it on. We're just waiting for a few things from John, and then our portion at this point will be done until probably midweek next week. on May 8th and 9th, or 14th and 15th, so one of those two combinations. There will be a community forum. Also, so Greenplay will be hosting that for us. They will also be speaking to all of our staff members, including seasonal staff members, key stakeholders here in town, as well as other department heads as well. So that's one project we have going on. The playground bids are in. We did receive 4. And they have been opened by the chairman and myself and the assistant recreation director at a meeting last week. And they ranged between $144,000 to $159,000. And that does include everything on the bid. I am still in the process of going through all of those, and we're hoping to have, I hope to have a recommendation for the rec commission shortly. So we should meet on those things.
Would you make sure when you do your recommendation, please send it to John so John can notify the rest of the board, please?
Yes, actually, my board will be coming here to talk to you about that first.
Expenditures, okay.
Yep.
I have a question. Won't you figure around 150 anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's pretty close.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Tara.
Okay, great.
Is there any other public comments? Peter?
Yeah, I'd like to start off by saying sorry to the folks in the public and to the board for having my number wrong, 55 instead of 50. I do apologize for that. I made a promise to 4 people tonight. I kept my promise. And as you can tell, I'm wrapped a little tight. I've given everything I could give to this job, and that's... And the department heads, I'd like to say thanks for your support. And to the public, thanks for your support. It's been fun.
Chief?
I'm just going to request that you waive your 3-minute rule because it may take me a little bit longer than that. First of all, I do want to say on behalf of the Fire Association, thank you for allowing us to do a pancake breakfast. We did just under 800 plates that were served in 2 days. It was awesome. People were, we enjoyed doing it. We had the Boy Scouts and the Explorer Post, which our association sponsors both of them. So we had members from both of those organizations working their tails off. Thank Casey O'Brien for getting some chocolate for the kids. That was a big hit. But so as the last few pancake breakfasts, we put that money toward a thermal imaging camera because people sometimes say, what are you raising money for? And so it's something that helps the town out. So we don't have a particular item in mind, but we're putting money away for rescue equipment, whether it's a new boat or something like that. So again, it gives us something to shoot for, and we make a donation to the town, save a little bit. But we appreciate you letting us use the building to do that, and hopefully next year, we thank the residents that came out, out-of-towners, people from Portsmouth, Exeter, tell us they come every year. A few of the selectmen were able to make it in and stop by. We appreciate that, so thank you very much. I saw that the road agent had so much fun going over the issue of bidding versus non-bidding. I wanted to bring you folks up to speed with where we're at with an ambulance and then kind of get a feeling for where you want me to go. So I just enjoy opening a new can of worms all the time. Our current ambulance is going in to be worked on again tomorrow. We've been looking at demo ambulances. We've looked at 4-wheel drive ambulances. We've looked at 2-wheel drive ambulances. I can't justify in my own mind to spend the extra money for a 4-wheel drive ambulance. It's about $40,000. That doesn't make sense to me. The highway department does such a good job of keeping the roads open for us. And he makes sure that if we need to get a plow up somebody's driveway, that he sends them along. So I don't see the nutritional value of the town investing an extra $40,000 to a 4-wheel drive ambulance. So we've kind of scaled back to looking at the type 3, which is basically a twin to what we already got. We've looked at a bunch, we've had 4 or 5 or 6 demos in the last few months. There's really only been one demo that closely meets what we're looking for. That's PL Custom, which is the company that made our current ambulance. In my opinion, they're one of the 2 best in the area. They have a demo that will save us about 5%. The demo would be available on or around the 1st of July because they have a show they want to go to. The ambulance currently has about 4,000 miles on it. He expects it'll have somewhere between 5,500 and 6,000 miles on it when it's ready to go. Rough number, that's about $180,000. That a comparable ambulance of that, if we ordered it new, is about 189 and some change. So try to get an idea from you folks if you would like me to pursue the demo, if you would like me to continue down the path of a bid and put them all out to bid. It's hard telling. We could potentially go to bid, and once the bids came back, if that ambulance was still available, we could potentially look at it, or it may not be available. It's kind of what we talked about, what you guys talked about earlier. So I'm kind of looking for a little guidance in that direction from you folks.
On that, you get certain vendors, but if you do a build-out list where you want stuff and have people bid that or comparable stuff, instead of do open blanket, then you'll be back to square one. So if you can, you and your staff can come up with a list, specify what you want to be bid on, like yellow handles.
Yeah, no. I mean, and I wanted to touch briefly on the policy that George proposed, but I wanted to talk about that after. But so I guess at this point, it's really what I'm looking for is a consensus out of you folks is, do you want to continue down the path of a bid, or do you want to look at taking a demo ambulance, head down that path?
Chief, how soon do you need an answer? Next meeting is fine. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, that's
all right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
The last ambulance you purchased, what did it cost you?
Let me get that number for you. I want to say 140 range, 147, 148, but let me get that exact number for you.
I was just curious if it was close to what the down payment.
It's kind of ironic looking at the numbers we were talking about. It's the first cab over fire truck, first custom fire truck we bought 2000. We paid $197,000 for that big fire truck, and now I'm buying a much smaller ambulance for only about $5,000 or $6,000 less.
How old is the current ambulance, please?
It's an 09.
Thank you.
With engine trouble.
Yes. What's that?
100,000 on it.
It's got 90,000 on it right now. We think there's an issue with the turbo. It's going in tomorrow. Not very optimistic numbers, but it is what it is. I can't be without an ambulance, and so away we go. I'm going to keep moving forward with getting the bid proposal. The one thing I wanted to talk briefly about the bid proposal and why I have a little bit of concern with the proposal that the chairman has made, in which you folks look at our bid proposal, is that I'm going to put a fire truck bid out, and I'm going to put a proposal together on paper. And the truth of the matter is that and I don't mean this negatively, but if you're not into fire trucks, you're not going to really have an idea whether I put a good bid proposal out or not. And while I understand that we have, and I'll say the same thing about a highway plow truck, hand me a generic bid spec for a highway plow truck, and I'll pick through some of the stuff, but I won't be able to make a rational decision, and I do understand trucks. I won't personally be able to make a rational decision on whether all the issues that we need are being addressed in that bid spec. So I would just caution the 5 of you not to get deeply involved in the micromanagement side of it. And if you want changes to the process on how we put a bid spec out, I think that's a little bit different than me having to sit down with all 5 of you and explain it. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes when I look at bid specs, even a generic bid spec for an ambulance, I have to go back and ask myself, is this being included? Is this included because I want this piece and I can't really tell. And sometimes they're going to say, yes, that's included with X, or no, you would need to write something in special to do that. So even though sometimes we start out with a generic thing, there's a fair amount of work for me to do. And again, I'll understand an ambulance or a fire truck a little bit better than the 5 of you will. So I would just caution you folks about coming up with a policy that you're going to review. I mean, I can review playgrounds. No, I'm kidding myself. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Chief, I just want to make a comment on that. It was because, I made the comment because of the verbiage.
Yep.
There seems to be an issue on it, not the specific piece of equipment or the specific bid for a piece of equipment. It was just the idea to review it for the verbiage, and it would help go out there. That's where I was coming from, not to say that anybody here can bid
and again,
or as you mentioned, playground.
Again, I think
that's not what we're here for.
I think what I'd like to see the 5 of you do is come up with a generic thing to say when you're putting a bid spec out, make sure it meets these points. I think that would be more beneficial to all of us to say, make sure we're triggering these. Now, my last thing is in the fire service, there's no secrets, and as soon as a demo ambulance shows up in Barrington, I'll get calls for 6 other ambulances. Stryker Ambulance Cot, which is the company that we buy our cot from, that we've used. There's 2 cot or stretcher manufacturers, Furno and Stryker. Stryker contacted me the other day and said he's interested in a new powered cot. And I said, well, I am, because I'd like to have a power cot in both of them. So because in the first quarter they cut the prices on their cot, because the first quarter they're trying to meet quotas and stuff like this. So in effect what the guy did is said, hey, you can buy this stretcher for $14,250. So I contacted Furno, even though Furno's not my #1 choice, and they were $14,052. So it was a $198 difference between the 2 stretchers. I think my personal opinion is Stryker is a much better unit, especially for a couple $100. The reason I'm here is kind of twofold. One is if there's a $1,224, it's $1,224.84 is the difference between if we order that stretcher before March 31st or after April 1st, the price goes back up. So one or two things, if you would approve the purchase, you would have to waive your bid requirement, because there wouldn't be time to get the bids out by the 31st. I'm looking at strictly, I would be coming forward and asking you guys to purchase a electric stretcher, so there's one in both ambulances. The one, as you know, that I have on there was given to us by the town of Exeter. It's about 10 years old. I'd be asking for a new stretcher when the new ambulance came in, and the Yankee in me says if we can save $1,200 now, we should do that. But it would require you folks to waive the bid process. I have about $50,000 in the equipment capital reserve, and that's where I would propose that you authorize the expenditure from, should you do that. And if you aren't comfortable doing that, then
for informational purposes, you could get other quotes and show you, then make a recommendation, justify it then, so Yeah, you, in the best interest of the town with the money. Could you get another quote, you think?
I don't know if there's another cart manufacturer out there that I could get a quote from. To my knowledge, Furno and Stryker are the only two stretcher manufacturers that I've ever heard of. But again, the 31st is on Saturday, so I'm not going to be able to come back. This is do or die, and again, this all came about, started on Friday, so.
All right, thank you, move on. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Did we make a decision that we're keeping the other ambulance? I know there was some talk about not keeping it at one because
I believe you did agree to keep it because one is that we wanted to have the second ambulance. We were busy enough and that there was little or no value for trade-in. The salesman, good old New England Yankee that he is from up in Maine, that sold us that. When I said, what do you give me for trade-in? And he goes, $3,500. He goes, I don't want the thing. He says, the motor's junk in it. And I said, well, it wasn't junk when I bought it. He goes, I didn't know it was, man, but I know it is now.
Satisfied?
Yeah, it's, I just caution everyone, because this is how you start accumulating equipment that we have to replace.
The board previously agreed to allow me to keep that in.
Right, I know, but we had also, you were looking at the one up in Milton, and we had made the decision not to go forward with
because
purchasing that.
it was better to keep ours than it was to purchase
to buy another one. Yeah, I just, if we've got to put a bunch of money into
it. To be
it,
truthfully honest, we are getting busy enough that we can't afford to be without an ambulance. That was the case I made before. I can't staff 2 ambulances right now, and I'm not trying to head in a direction to be able to do it. But I could staff it potentially when we have motor vehicle accidents and need multiple ambulances. I have extra people. We would probably staff it then, particularly at night, not during the day. And sometimes when our current ambulance is out, probably 20 to 25 times a year right now, we're already out on a call and we get a second medical aid, we're bringing mutual aid in. So again, during the day, not likely, but nights and weekends, there's a good chance there's a couple of people around and we'd be able to cover that ourselves. And for only being able to get $3,500 out of the thing, I don't think it makes any sense. I think we hang on to it, get it up, and then in 5 or 6 years, I'm sure I'm probably not going to be here, but in 5 or 6 years, I think you could look at putting a remount and just buying a cabin chassis and putting the rear body on that.
Well, yeah, my only caution and struggle there is, we're adding 14 grand to it for a stretcher. And I get it saves it back.
I would put the 14 grand in the new ambulance, and the old 10-plus-year-old electric stretcher would be in the reserve ambulance.
Yeah.
And again, I apologize for not, this all came about the last 3 or 4 days, and it goes away by the end of the month. So it really comes down to you guys to make a decision tonight, or it goes on.
Roll this up a little bit?
Yeah,
Is there any other questions, Chief?
Is there a motion on that?
I have one other question. Is this tied into the ambulance? Does this come out of your regular budget, or does this come out of the revolving fund?
I would ask that come out of, we have a capital reserve fund for equipment, which we purchase big pieces of equipment. There's $50,000 in that, $50,000 plus $300 in interest, so a touch over $50,000. You agreed to make a purchase of the withdrawal of about $8,000 to buy a camera, and I'm asking you to take the 14.2 out of there.
Right. We also have a pretty big expense regarding radios coming up, and there's another one.
The radio there's a communication cap reserve for the radios and the repeater.
There was something else that we had that was a big
yeah, there's
Scott Packs, wasn't it?
No, we got those
2 years ago. You're right.
Yep.
There was something else though. I don't know.
Maybe engine in the ambulance.
I mean, there's going to be approximately $10,000 in loose equipment that will have to go into the second reserve and the new one, so that we're running to. And the last thing I had was,
Excuse me, just a minute, Tracy?
So, as I understand it, not to circumvent the bidding process, but there are only 2 vendors for this stretcher, and you already have pricing from them.
right, to
Okay.
my knowledge, yes.
I'm sorry, I just looked up.
Anybody else have a comment?
That answered what I wanted, so I mean, I'll make the motion to allow Rick to go forward with, since he already has pricing from both of the vendors to move forward. Purchasing.
I'll second that.
Striker.
Comments? You have any comments?
That's
Voting,
what I'm
please.
doing essentially this week.
That's right.
Bailey, aye.
And the last thing I had.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
we have 5-0 vote of approval of that.
My bad. I'm just trying to hurry through my 3 minutes.
Yeah. I've given you several other people 3 minutes. So.
The last thing I had, and I'm not sure if I asked already, we potentially have the opportunity to have a home donated to us for a training burn, and part of the process is that you have to authorize me to move forward and allow us to burn that building. One of the things that does happen is when we get ready to move forward and train in the property, I have to notify the town's insurance carrier that we're going to be training on specific days, and the insurance carrier names the property owner as an added rider on there. So,
I have a question. Does that particular building have any asbestos in it?
That we can't burn them with asbestos in it, but the asbestos abatement has been scheduled. I'm not sure if it's done yet. They have to remove the oil tank, they got to disconnect the power. If all goes correctly, there's a whole lot.
They're going to remove the asbestos to answer my question. Okay.
There's a lot of hoops on our end.
Anybody else have a question on burning the house?
I thought they wanted it done by April 1.
Yeah, that's gone by.
202?
They're not gonna,
They can't.
Okay.
They can't meet that. And
So is this still going to require additional resources to shut down the road? And
Yes.
The police department involved? So
the issue, if it comes down, there's a whole lot of moving parts, and one of them is shutting the road down. I have conceptual approval from the state of New Hampshire. The idea is that we would train on Saturday, keep at least one lane open so people could pass back and forth. We would go over on Sunday morning at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and burn the place. So the idea being is that we would only be shutting that road down for half hour or so at 4 or 5 in the morning, and the state's okay with that.
You're going to have police support?
If the state requires it, then yes.
Dan?
I thought we already approved this. This is Stonehouse 202?
Yes.
I thought it was already approved already.
It was, but it had to be,
It'd be done
originally,
before
it had to be done by April 1.
All right.
The issue was they wanted to avoid the taxes. The guy that they were going to have tear the house down, because they fully understand that there's so many moving parts, I still may not be able to pull it off, and they may have to tear it down. The guy that they were going to hire to do it can't do it until later April, early May, and the difference between that person and the next bidder was more than what the taxes are, so they're just going to pay the taxes. So now they're not in such a.
Any other questions on the burning of the house? Thank you, Chief.
Oh, you are motion. It's already approved.
You making it?
I'll make a motion to change the date for the previous approval.
We have a second?
Change the date,
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Who seconded it?
Tracy.
Tracy, any other comments? Tracy, would you start off the vote?
That's right.
Bailey, aye.
Yeah, right.
5-0 carries, thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Chief. Is there any other public comments?
Hey, Ron St. Jean, if I can just use Rick's leftover minute, I just want to mention that those school board meetings are public. And though it's great to have a select person there, it's much better to have the public there. And not just to keep an eye on them, but they discuss important issues every week. And it's really frustrating for them to sit there and have 1 or 2 people, and it's always the same 1 or 2 people, show up. And it would be great if more people were there and asked questions and learned more about the education that's provided to the kids in town, and the costs, and the philosophies. So I would just urge people, to get out there on alternate Tuesday nights and see for yourself what goes on. Thanks.
Is there any other public comments?
I have one. I would just like to echo,
Is there any other public comments from? Hey, there's a, please go ahead.
I would just like to echo what everyone else has said, as much as I, it may seem like I'm trying to shun one area. I do believe the school board is really important because it does account for more than 50% of our tax base.
62.
That's why I said more than 50.
That's right, that's why I hooked you up.
And I do, feel that is an important part of what we do. Been there the first year I was with the planning board, last year I was moved over to the school board. Now I'm working my way all the way around the horn.
But at least right now, going back to the planning board, at least you'll have your input will be there, and part of your expertise when you take from your current position, civilian position will really help. So I think it would be formidable for us to have somebody of your caliber there at the planning board.
That's why I don't play for the Celtics.
So
Plus, I'm too short.
We have finished. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We all done?
Any objections?
Just have to sign things.
So, meeting adjourned.
Oh, yeah, get used to it. Oh, just as
Don't give up yet. It'll get better.
I don't know how to do it.
Once I do. That's what I was saying. 90% is
This year it was